So in this episode, Ryan and I discuss our initial reactions to the 2022 Nelson Nash Institute think tank. Thank you for listening. We enjoyed it. Hope you have fun. See you next time. Drive safe. Welcome to the Banker with Life podcast. I'm your host, James Neathery.
I'm your co-host, Ryan Griggs.
And here we are in Birmingham, Alabama. This is the day after the 2022 Nelson Nash Institute think tank. And so today's the 25th.
Yep.
Think tank was on the 23rd and the 24th. Of course, we flew in a day early to drink with a lot, with the Canadians and all my friends. But as we said in the last, episode, the previous episode, that we were going to, have a conversation before we left Birmingham to kind of discuss our initial reactions. And we've done some talking, of course, but we saved the best for this conversation.
Yeah. So what was your immediate first impression?
And this overall is our fabulous co-host, world famous Ryan Griggs. Right. My immediate reaction was, so it's a different venue this year. So the hotels were separated from the actual events where all the talks were going on. And so I like change. Not really, but I like that change.
The venue was very nice.
It was very
classy.
Very good. Yeah. What I was most impressed with was the fact that there was a consistency among the talks without coordination or being planned. Mm-hmm. See, David Stearns had asked me for the title, the topic, what I was going to talk about, the PowerPoints for months prior. And, Parkinson's law and I, we had several discussions leading up to it. So the short of it is this, that David never seen, and no one had seen the final slides of my talk, and they weren't even ready until like the day before. But then what I talked about and what other, practitioners spoke about was, it was just very consistent. Mm-hmm. They weren't identical, but we all touched on very similar points. So the consistency without coordination was very impressive to me.
Yeah. What I don't like in conferences in general, I'm not talking about this one, but in conferences, in business conferences or leadership conferences or professional, any of the development conferences is the hype stuff, where you got to get all excited and there's the lights and it's flashing, it's very theatrical, like a performance.
Right.
And my favorite elements of this think tank were those moments where people went deepest. So your talk, a Canadian practitioner Jason Lowe, we both appeared on his and Richard Canfield's podcast, Wealth Without Bay Street. Like you said, the consistency of a lot of people going and putting words from Nelson's book on the screen and reading it together. I mean, that must have appeared 4 or 5 times in different people's talks. And like you said, uncoordinated. And that's what I value, right? Things that go deeper behind in fact, someone quoted from the introduction that the infinite banking is not a sales tool for life insurance agents. You can say that, but then to show it and experience it is the real value. And I'm very glad we had the think tank in person this year. We did not last year, which I did not like.
Right.
And that's not a secret. I'm glad that we did it in person. Of course, I understand there's all sorts of circumstances and reasons, problems with flights and can't get a venue. And so very glad that we could get a venue. And there was definitely some improvements with the venue and the catering. And then the first thing I remember that caught my attention was how many new people there were.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was David at one point who asked, new people raise your hand. I was standing up at the back of the room because I got back problems. And at the back of the room, a whole bunch of people raised their hand. That was cool.
That was very good to see for me as well. I think, I don't know, I had to, turn and look. And you can't see everyone in the room. Turn and look like. I didn't have the advantage of being in the back of the room because, the best students sit up front. So I was closer to the front. I'm just saying. But I thought there were like maybe 15 or 20 new. Is that about?
I think there were maybe 40 or more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I don't know I don't know the head count, but 140 to 180 people in there.
Yeah, and people don't get this either. They think, well, first of all life insurance agents who talk about banking are all the same. Okay, 140 to 180, let's say. Who knows what the exact number is? Out of a country of 330 million. Okay, it's not like a whole bunch of people are coming to learn about Nelson and get deeper into becoming your own banker and to get encouraged and refreshed in that message, which you have to do, right? Probably the biggest personal takeaway from me was just this constant thing in my mind, like, oh, I have to pay more premium. Like I should be doing, and I do a lot, and I should do more. And we're, not to say we're the greatest in the world or whatever, but we're kind of deep in this, been doing this for a long time. And to say, so that even, we're coming away with refreshing, new, added, emphasized lessons, to think that somebody who's doing a ClickFunnels online is going to have the same sort of perspective that you would want to truly implement IBC is a joke.
It can't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we can all go buy life insurance, right? I mean, we can call it IBC. We can talk about IBC. And we can throw Nelson's name around on a very low key and talk about becoming your own bank, becoming your own banker, any kind of a bastardization or variation, and sell life insurance, right? From an illustration, numbers on a page. And, so that is very easy to do. Mm-hmm. Buying life insurance, getting people to say yes by, manipulating the numbers on a page. That is not banking. And so my talk was titled The Seen and the Unseen. Frederick Bastiat, that was just seen, that was just unseen, 1850 France, philosopher, economist. Nelson wrote an essay in his second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth, The Seen and the Unseen. So, very little originality from me, I get it. Mm-hmm. But the consumer doesn't necessarily see it. It's very hard to see what goes on behind the numbers on a page, right? But it's easy to buy life insurance if you're healthy and can write a check for the premium. Right. That is not banking. Just because you can borrow against an asset, and all life insurance has a loan provision if you have capital, cash values. So that excludes term. And so just because you can borrow against cash value doesn't mean you're banking.
Yeah.
Just because you buy life insurance doesn't mean you're banking at all. So,
and in your talk, which was well received, there were many laugh lines throughout. People enjoyed it.
That was funny, really.
People laughed like every 5 minutes, for not like a good reason. But you showed many of the online social media quotes that we know you see out there right. in the private Facebook groups. The ones we're talking about, and you showed these and deconstructed them a bit. Some of them are so obtuse and obscene and stupid that you don't have to deconstruct them. It's just obviously
on its face.
Yeah, loan repayments cause cash value to grow.
No, it was borrowing. They mentioned loan. It was just borrowing. Because you have a loan outstanding.
That's going to make the cash value grow. Huh?
Yeah, your policy is more efficient.
Yeah, and then you have to break even in your 4 to 6, otherwise you're not doing it right. Of course, these people don't come. They're not anywhere here.
Wonder why? Well, and if you're going to bring that up, I'm going to... And so
the viewers hear it.
No, I know.
And it's not like we're ignorant. It's not like there's just like a secret thing. I know it's a private Facebook group and there's more than one. I get it. And you think that it's clandestine and nobody knows about it. We see all of it. It's not like we're not aware of it. And we've done a thing in the past that didn't go up because we spent too much time. But, it was a portion of your talk. It's relevant here. And it's a contrast to what the rest of the conference was about, in the book, in Becoming Your Own Banker. That's the only reason I bring it up.
No, and it's good. I mean, but since we bring it up, you bring it up. That my talk, The Seen and the Unseen, was about social media, what the prospective client, the general public, will see and be exposed to. And it's all a part of the noise, right? But they're licensed life, and they present themselves as licensed life insurance agents.
And it's so difficult to get a life insurance license.
Yeah, it's like just about that much harder than getting a driver's license. No, I'm kidding. It's harder to get a driver's license.
You have to operate machinery to get a driver's license.
Good. Okay. And so and that's why I brought it up, because you see this, we see this, and just on its own appearance, it is wrong and it should be easily identifiable as wrong. But beyond that, what you don't see, what happens, the mindset, what is the most likely activity? Because I was thinking of naming that talk, out of Egypt and on to Babylon, from slavery to slavery. We're born in the debt slave construct. We get exposed to the infinite banking concept. Oh my gosh, we can become our own banker. What financial freedom and liberty that is. You cannot have financial liberty without freedom, right? So, and then I'm like, let me say too, another topic or title was, let me back up on that. Out of Egypt, on to Babylon, slavery to slavery, debt construct, debt slave. Then we get exposed to the idea of the infinite banking concept. And then it's so exciting. So we want to learn. I believe people want the truth. And then they stumble on this and this quote unquote noise. That's exactly what it is. I mean, that creates more slavery.
Yes.
That's my whole point.
Yeah.
It does not create freedom. It creates disappointment.
There's always more dependence.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're going to rely on the life insurance companies' non-guaranteed elements and their contracts that are very restrictive on the flexibility of the PUA. And then let's make it as complex as we possibly can. And that'll add nothing but fragility into the future. These are the exact things that I talked about.
Yeah. And we had 5 life insurance companies sponsored and came as well. By the way, the big 4 are nowhere to be seen.
Wonder why?
Yeah.
The big 4 here plus that other one. Because when you say the big 4, you're leaving out one. Mm-hmm. You're leaving out the second oldest life insurance company in North America. And so I always, say, what about the big 5? So
there was part of the conference was a moderated panel with the representatives of these companies. And the question came up, this 1090 thing, the 1090 structure thing is just one of the element that you see on the forums with the guys who don't come to the think tanks who, one of your comments was how they referred to Nelson, I'm glad Nelson, brought this to light, but in this one example, policy, the way policy loans work is so archaic and the commercial banks, the conventional banks make it so much easier.
That was on a different platform because I didn't just, bring up the almost idiotic statements from that one private Facebook. And look, that private Facebook was created as a hater page because we and I promote noise and confusion or something like that.
And look, let's be clear. We know the 2 guys who did it.
I know who they are.
Yeah. I'll speak for myself, I've certainly interacted with both.
Expand on that.
Oh, so one was fired because he wanted to do the miles long emails where he's going to teach me everything there is to know about IBC and life insurance because he's a sales executive for some or an executive at some corporation. So. And then this happens often with skilled professionals who have done well, who think they know something about finance, so they're going to teach other people. Yeah. And then you start to get down to the gritty on the nitty gritty on structures and company, and it's like, well, no and no and no, and then so he wanted to tell me what the right thing to do was, and it's like, okay, you go do that, you go do your thing. Right now, he could have just gone and done that, and there would have been nothing to come from it after. But clearly, his feelings were hurt because you got to go start a group to continue to bitch and complain.
Yeah,
so that's one of them. And then there's another one who was around when I first got into the business. Is very much a recruiting vibe. Look at all my spreadsheets, all these. And you said in your talk that. And it's true, and Nelson said it, that if he could write the book again, he wouldn't have put illustrations in it. And so while Nelson, who is the founder and creator of IBC, in Becoming Your Own Banker, is saying wouldn't have done illustrations again, in contrast to that, you get the keyboard warriors online who are creating legions of spreadsheets, and they're going to model all of this thing, none of which is using any of the actual life insurance company software. And so you already know it's not going to what appears on the little spreadsheet calculation is not going to bear any resemblance to reality. But it's just spreadsheet after spreadsheet, and eventually I get exhausted, and you do. It's like being in a swamp. If you swim around in mud all day, you're eventually going to get tired. And so it's time to exit the noise at some point. And so I said, look, I'm not interested. We're not doing, certainly none of this recruiting, partnership, any kind of, no. And that could have just stayed there. But clearly feelings got hurt. So we've got to go and do a whole Facebook thing.
Show the world how the infinite banking concept really is.
So, I mean, I see it. We get it. And that, go do all that. And the fundamental reason I want to bring all this up is that if you want that, go have it. All I'm saying is that there is a distinction between going and buying life insurance, paying minimal lip service to Nelson, trading illustrations, to becoming overnight amateur life insurance illustration expert analysts, and doing the infinite banking concept. Yeah. And your talk made that distinction. Jason, again, I'll mention his talk. He was very forceful about it. I was even kind of surprised that Jason was very fun, and he was fun. It wasn't like a shake your fist kind of talk, but he was very direct and said, this is not, just like Nelson said, and I'm sure it kind of, shocked people. He's like, this is not about life insurance. This is about taking control of the banking function for you and your family and then generations of your family that you'll never meet. And got very transparent in his personal system, number of policies, premiums paid, loan repayments, what he financed. That's IBC. That's what Nelson Nash was teaching.
Yeah. Well, the feelings, backing up, the feelings were hurt because before you received that big, long, ridiculous email that'll wear you out just looking at it, much less reading it, and having someone telling you what is right and what you should do and what they think and which is not right, but they want you to acquiesce and encourage them in their continuation.
Seeking validation.
Thinking. Exactly. They had, and then the other gentleman that has a commentary that tries to recruit, he's very, very prolific answering the questions like he's an expert, completely wrong. Before that guy reached out to you, and then the other moderator, administrator, they both tried to come into our process, right? The big, long one. I forewarned you.
You did.
I did. And I have a special place in my heart for life insurance agents. And there's a really special place in my heart for NNI practitioners. But for the agent, financial expert, guru that knows everything, I have zero tolerance for. I can't take it. I don't have the time. I don't want to get wore out. If I want to get wore out, I'll go work out at the gym. It's like I will not allow myself to be drugged through a bunch of noise. And I don't have arrival syndrome. I came here to learn and share, right? So then I think I hurt the other guy's feelings because he was, saying this, and this, and there's no. So, and they say on there that they started that Facebook page because of that. And then, people see that. And so I think it was relevant, but it's across social media. They didn't even talk about TikTok and all of these others.
Right.
And it's prevalent out there. But how much time do you want to spend on the noise? Right. I already spend more than I want to.
Right.
And so I believe that there should be a distinction, and there actually is a distinction between Nelson Nash Institute practitioners and these guys selling life insurance. Cursory using Nelson's name, IBC, but then, it's almost, it is exactly doing the opposite. So, and there were going back to the reality, David Stern's, his talk was titled The Tale of Two Dads. His biological father, what he did, He was in his 90s when he graduated, had clear mental, capabilities, and he had done everything that the really traditional financial planning says. Qualified plans, you get a pension. He had a military background. He was an educator, and did well. There's no question about that. He did well. And then he compared that to Nelson, his father-in-law, the tale of two dads, talking about getting real. And then he goes through what Nelson did. Military background, had the military pension, had the pension from the life insurance industry. And then, the policies that he purchased, how many, and then how many he gave away, and just the stark difference. Now, David had to wrap up his father's estate.
Yes.
Okay. And I think he had 3 other siblings. He's handling all that. And on the qualified plans and the annuities, and I'm not disparaging any equities or any kind of a financial product. I think that financial products are tools and they each have a place. But, each job has a particular tool. You can give a hired hand a tool and he'll not only not get the job done, but he's subject to break the tool. You give a craftsman the tool, he'll get the job done and take care of the tool and get it done under the timeline, under the budget. My opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. That was beautiful. So David, he committed, we'll see, to fly out to Alvarado, Texas and do a live podcast on that Tale of Two Dads. That was very real, very, very, very well done. And they were all very well done.
Yeah.
But
there were some other elements of that, I think it's like, I think some people get the idea that we're talking about a distinction between what it is to do IBC and what it is to just go buy life insurance. And there's this perception, at least at first for a lot of people, that there's not a fundamental difference. Whereas throughout the think tank, there were many examples of what that difference is. So Brandon and Nate with Unlimited Life Concepts, who are other practitioners who I like. I don't know if you got the chance to talk to them much.
I did get to talk to them.
But I like them very much. And, they emphasize the importance of a relationship. And it's not a relationship in the sense of wanting to maintain like a sales strategy. It's to implement this over time. Nelson said that IBC requires a system of policies. There are points where you expand. And by the way, I will say that I have disagreements with other practitioners. We can disagree about when that expansion should occur and therefore what the structure of policies should be. But that's beside the point. We can talk about that, right? At the end of the day, we're all coming back to Nelson. We're all coming back to the idea of creating a system of policies. And what I liked, so there's Brandon and Nate talking about the importance of those relationships. Then there was yours, where you gave examples of certain cases where you've got grandparents, parents, and grandkids, and the number of policies and when they go in force and how all that funding works. Like that is not like Nelson said, think long range. That is a long-term oriented, multi-year strategic implementation over time. And I have felt and this is now going on with many of my clients. They had their first policy a year, 2, 3 years back. They're coming back for the next one because the circumstances have developed. The income has gone up. The expenses have gone down. The cash is stacking up in somebody else's bank. It's time to create a new one. On whose life should that policy be? What are the implications of the human life value? How long-term oriented are we going to be in terms of the ability to pay premium payment? Right? That is an ongoing conversation. The idea that I'm going to go implement IBC by buying a policy from one advisor at one time is the exact opposite of what we're talking about with true Nelson Nash style infinite banking concept implementation.
I completely agree. And in some of the previous podcast episodes that we've done, we haven't necessarily gone deep into that. So just because we talk about a properly structured policy, the contractual right to pay a premium into the future, so not artificially designed where you force a client to buy a new policy in year 4, year 7, or year 5. No, when you build the correct foundation, you can build anything on top of that. So if you have a weak foundation, it's not going to go well for whatever structure you put on it. Mm-hmm. So it's a natural expansion. I'm telling you, the expansion of the infinite banking concept, the expansion of your system is a natural occurrence. It happens naturally. And if you build the correct foundation, what do you mean, James? I'm talking about a policy or series of policies initially that are made for you with what you're doing now, where you think you want to go, and the future is absolutely unknown. And if there's a business owner or an individual, and there's a spouse or there's not a spouse, there's children or not children, all of those are different. You should never have an identical policy to anyone else unless you have an identical twin. And so my point is this: you lay the correct foundation, whether it's one policy or 5, whatever it is, that you have the contractual right, not the obligation, but the contractual right to pay a premium for a long period of time and not squeeze the base down to some ungodly amount when you're squeezing down the only guaranteed component of the cash value. I mean, it's just backwards from what Nelson did. And so we talk about properly structured policies. And I know that term is thrown around out there a lot. But you have the right to pay a premium. And most of us start, there's really only one or two ways. We are going to dip our toes in because we're really not sure. Or it's like, I'm all in, and you kind of got to bring them down a little bit, right? But you still build it where it can be scalable correctly for them. And it's a beautiful thing when it happens naturally. And it always happens. When you solve for your need for finance, you're going to ask, even after 7702, because 7702 requires less death benefit now. But even in light of 7702, when you solve for your need for finance, you're going to ask for so much death benefit that you can't get it past the underwriter. And it's the way it is.
Yeah.
Nelson, over 40, 45 policies, gave them away. First one at 13. I mean, of course, he's 13. He's 14 when his daddy gives it to him, makes him pay for it. But then he buys another one, and he keeps buying them. He didn't like, this one policy is going to do me well forever.
Right.
Even though it was correct, no PUAs, straight, whole life, all base policy with a legitimate mutual company that's paid legitimate dividends for over 100 years. Why did he keep buying them? Because they were structured improperly and he was forced to? No, but he kept solving for his need for finance.
Yes.
And that is infinite banking.
That is infinite banking.
It is.
Yeah. And then the opposite of that, when you go and do the short-sighted kind of deal, and then the agent doesn't answer the phone and doesn't answer the emails, then you'll come to us, which is what happens.
We answer the phone.
And then we have to go do what we can to salvage what's been done.
Which doesn't mean a 1035 exchange necessarily. Salvage it doesn't mean you have to,
just implement a plan.
That looks different for every case.
To keep it alive. to make sure you're not going to hurt yourself with it.
And make sure it serves you well. Yeah.
And then shave off all the stuff that you haven't yet unlearned, and then do the education to understand what the proper foundation is, and then start from there. Yeah. And I think the statement that you say in the past that if you don't have time to do it, what is it? If you don't have
time to do it right the first time, you sure as hell don't have time to do it over.
Yeah. So might as well just get it right the first time.
Might as
maybe.
Well. But we're human. If you made a mistake, it's okay. We still love you.
Yeah.
We can fix it, or it can be corrected. It's not the end of the world.
And that's a theme that I think is not emphasized sufficiently, is the idea that we are all catching up. Like if we were having a conversation with an agent just after the think tank wrapped up, and she was talking about how, she needed to pay more premium, and look, I get it. So do I. But she was, I thought, and she may not feel this way, but that she was kind of being down on herself and like being a little hard on herself. It's like, look, we're all catching up. Like our parents should have been doing this. Like we all should be way ahead. We all need to be paying more. But it's always a process. It's another implication of the idea that IBC is a process, not a product. And it's tied in with the arrival syndrome. We're not just going to do a one-off and get it all done right away. There's a process of ongoing learning that has to happen. And like I said earlier on, one of the big examples of that for me was like, I need to go pay more. And then there's a tendency for me to get hard on myself. It's like, well, no, I just got one less than a year ago. It's like, and there was one less than a year before that. But my point is we're all catching up. And that's just part of the ongoing process. But it is a process. And so if there's a product sale where, like you had mentioned in your talk, like get the illustration in front of the client fast as possible so they can hit it, sign the application, take delivery, and then you fly off into the night and you never heard from again. And then you, the client, find out that you can't pay that premium for as long as you thought you could, that there's no flexibility around when you can pay the premium. And then, well, what's it look like when you're going to go expand? Like, what's the right time? When's that? And you have all these other questions, but look, you already signed for delivery of the policy. So the commission's already been paid, right? So those questions aren't going to get answered, right? That is the outcome of, that is the unseen, part of the unseen that results from that short-term oriented cash value as a percentage of premium in year one kind of mindset.
And then the people who promote that are like, oh, well, you're paying a higher base. That's all they look at is the ratio between the base and the PUA.
Yeah, and then they assert that that's wrong.
And assert that you're doing that for commissions. Right. Yeah. So it's really another case of grace for me, law for you. And look, I'm going to judge you by my character. That's what they do.
If we wanted to make commissions, I'd be selling IUL. Or I'd go get a securities license and go do pension products with tax qualified plans with people. If you think I'm chasing commissions, you got another thing coming. There's a lot of opportunity to make money in the Wall Street financial world that you must, in my opinion, you must forego. There are other people who disagree, and I'm not saying that having a securities license is always a bad thing, but there are other people in the IBC world who do part of that business, and it's all for various reasons. Don't get me wrong, I'm not slighting that. But what I am saying is that IBC is just categorically different. And to say that, oh, we're going to do IBC and not do, and do what Nelson taught because of commissions ignores the fact that really, if we wanted to just go out and harvest commissions all day from people, I'd be selling mortgages, or I'd be selling tax qualified plans or IUL, right? But I'm after a commission. When I go out to, this happened twice. I went to a bar and
they drink.
Look, it's
all of them. I don't want to beat up the Canadians.
We have a moment to convene with people
after
you don't see for a long time.
Catching up, it's like it happens.
So I go sit down and always, I'm wearing a suit, and so well, what do you do? Oh God, okay, IBC, it's capitalization, it's not investment, it's becoming your own banker, it's Nelson Nash.
You should have said, look, I'm drinking, that's what I do.
Yeah, that is not an easy conversation. In fact, none of them go anywhere. And so the idea that I'm just in it for the commission, but I put myself voluntarily in this position where I'm going to tell somebody something that I know they're not going to get is silly. You're being silly.
You took that big long email after I told you.
I was young and naive. Listen, it's a process.
If you want to have a conversation, by all means, don't talk about life insurance. If you don't want to have a conversation, they ask, what do you do? It's like, I sell life insurance. Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Massive premiums and dividend paying whole life insurance.
As they're walking away to the furthest point in the room. And I'm like, perfect. I didn't want to talk to you.
Yeah. So. But that's why we do the podcast. And that's why I write.
Oh, I thought I didn't have anything to do on Saturdays is why we did the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm kidding. Come on.
But so there's all this other work that has to be done to provide a platform, to provide the information that people who do read Nelson's book, who have encountered IBC, who want to learn about it the correct way, who want to learn about how to implement the correct way at a specific time and place. Right now, not year 2000 when the book was written and, oh my gosh, look at the illustrations and the cash on cash years earlier. And, there's a set of information, a foundation that's got to be elaborated upon and reinforced to take someone who has read Infinite Banking, who's read Becoming Your Own Banker, who's caught the Infinite Banking concept and who wants to implement it. And so that's the job. That's, by the way, the motivation. That is the reason. Not, I'm going to make a certain commission on, it takes the life insurance company so dang long to accept an application and deliver a policy and accept a premium check for the commission to finally come in. It's like,
and I completely agree. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 21 years old or you're 75 years old. When you hear the idea, when you're exposed to this idea that you can become your own banker, and you want to implement that wherever you're at in your life, right, financially and age-wise, it is catch up from then on. Period. It does not matter how old you are. And I got to say that I talked about the social media, and I talked about illustrations, and generally on a 30,000 foot view, reference what Nelson wrote about on the illustrations and the thinking, right? Because that social media noise and all the noise really you can get right to the thinking. You can identify the thinking and the errors thereof just immediately. But then, I'm a positive guy, right? I don't want to live in a world of negativity. And that's not negative. It is what it is. And my encouragement is just to be aware of the noise, be able to identify the noise. Well, that's on you. I mean, you, the listener, the viewer, need to spend the time learning about the infinite banking concept from the source. Becoming Your Own Banker, the book. Becoming Your Own Banker. Second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. A third book, How Privatized Banking Really Works. I'm partial to the Banking with Life DVD. It's a 30,000 foot overview of kind of what's gone on. And then Nelson's 6.5 hour DVD series where he is live presenting his seminar. If you don't thoroughly understand those, and I'm not saying you have to be an expert level to be able to convey and teach it, but at least a fundamental, more than a rudimentary understanding of the infinite banking concept, okay? You have to, in my opinion, you need to know that. You need to know those 3 books. You need to listen and watch the 6.5 hour DVD series. 2, be able to even speak about the infinite banking concept with any intelligence or any understanding. And I'm being encouraging. I'm telling you, if you'll spend time on those, you will be able to identify the noise in short order. And before you make a purchase, before you implement this, you should at least be exposed to those items. And if you are, like I said, you'll be able to identify the noise. You'll be able to speak with a practitioner who understands, right? Because they've done all these things, right? The people doing the noise and anything but infinite banking, they don't want to read these things. They don't want to read these things. They don't want to do these things for whatever reason, right? And that in and of itself should discount them,
Yeah. I just find that it almost feels like that online short-sighted stuff is just they're having a totally different conversation. Like the letters I, B, and C appear together. I get that. I understand they're using the same words, but it's a whole different conversation. If you want to talk about how to mutilate a life insurance policy, if you want to talk about how to maximize cash value in year 1, okay, that is what that is. It is not infinite banking. It is not having a long-range conversation where we assume and understand that you're not afraid to capitalize, or we're thinking 70 years ahead like Nelson did, when we're thinking in intergenerational terms, when we're thinking in terms of what is my true ability to pay premium? Well, how much money do you deposit in a bank account each year? Now we're really having a conversation now. Okay, then I understand we got to walk that back a bit, especially when you start. You have urgent, immediate liquidity needs. I get it, but that's the true conversation. And then if paying premium is good now, and it is, then wouldn't paying premium in the future be also good?
No. I want to end my ability to pay a premium as soon as possible. Doesn't even make sense.
And it's just, I think one of the reasons it gets me fired up, gets you fired up, like, especially you knew Nelson for so long, like 15 years, like it is personal. And then to see someone using that language in a disingenuous fashion to smuggle in what they think is right, it is frustrating. It's insulting. It is irritating. And it doesn't work out for the client in the way that they think it does, because they've encountered becoming your own banker. They've encountered Nelson. And then their experience is going to diverge from what Nelson's talking about and what we're talking about. And then, of course, you're going to get frustrated. So I'm frustrated that other people are frustrated on top of the personal insult, but we're in it for a commission. It's like, what?
I was, and you mentioned the 3 generations. I brought up like 3 different cases of 3 different generations, 3 different time periods, all of the policies, the total count of the policies on the total number of lives, on the total number of generations, and without disclosing any information. And then I brought up 4 or 5 other cases for reference, what these people have done. And kind of the thinking from beginning when we first met to where they're at now, and then timelines were between maybe 12 and 18 months to 13 years, right? And my point here is that another thing, along with natural expansion, the more you see, the more you see you don't know. I'm just saying there's a continual learning curve that we're all on, and we all should be on, and it should last our whole lives. But specifically to the infinite banking concept, we're at the front end of, when we get exposed to this idea, and the learning continues, okay? And to that point, none of these policies that we built, I can even tell you what the ratios are in the cases, because they're all different and specific to the client. But to a person, without doing these artificially twisted, I call them, it's an artificial efficiency is what you're doing.
That was very good.
You're making the policy look efficient in the early years. And Nelson, and it's true, is why, not just because Nelson said it because it's true. The policies become more efficient over time. So the most efficient policy that you'll ever own is the oldest one that you own. Okay? All right.
So much follows from that.
No question. And so to a person, we've become exposed, we've learned, we've implemented, we've gone through the illustration review, and we see all the numbers, and we understand that they'll go up and down, and based on what you can do, what you can't do, what the goal is, in the face of an unknown future. To a person, in a year, 2 years, they're like, is that what I can borrow against? Is that my loan value? Is that my cash value? And they're shocked.
Yeah.
To a person.
Even though you told them what the cash value growth would be given the premium.
And you didn't contort the policy to make everything happen in day one.
The same thing happened to me. Pay a premium. You always think the cash value is some number. You go in, look at what it is. It's higher. I'm not saying it's always going to happen that way. It's been that way for me ever since I started.
That's what happens when you use the right company and the right structure.
And then it's going to be bigger later. It's going to be bigger the next year. It's going to be bigger the year after that. I don't care what's happening in Ukraine. I don't care what the Fed's doing or what taxes are. And then the numbers will be bigger by a bigger margin the following year and the year after that. And I've got the ability to pay that big premium for a long time.
Yeah. Speaking of Ukraine, the same thing's going on in Ukraine that's going on in Canada, draconian governments.
Yeah.
The people want to free themselves. God bless them. I have a Canadian pin on one of my Canadian counterparts from Quebec. He's like, I love him, Jose. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I love the pin. When you get home, would you send me one? He's like, no, here, take this one. No. So, in solidarity with my Canadians.
Yeah.
So.
And then another element of the noise that I don't think has been identified enough, Jason referenced it very briefly, is this idea that I've got to, you talked about it too, is that I've got to pay a premium to build a whole bunch of cash value to then immediately go and take a loan to go do something, because if I don't take a loan, I'm not really using the system. And if I'm not using it, then I'm not optimizing it. It could be better. Whereas Nelson says, in becoming your own banker and in building your warehouse of wealth, that if you take control of the banking function, if you pay a high premium and build cash value, that rather than you having to go find the opportunities will track you down. And so this idea that and I don't think people notice it, but they're like, okay, I've paid. But curiously, very curiously, the people who have raised this question with me, I go and I look at their contract, and lo and behold, they haven't paid the full PUA. And I'm like, that's okay. We're all improving. But it's okay to pay a premium to build cash value and to just keep doing that. First of all, there's plenty going on in your own life to start taking over. I mean, the subject of the mortgage came up, right? The people that you talked about, the people who want you to pay a high cash value, get a HELOC, transfer, get rid of the mortgage. Whereas Nelson says in Becoming Your Own Banker that's going to take, 20 years to establish a system large enough to take over that kind of, okay, now if you want to, be hyperactive and do it sooner, okay, but understand Nelson is saying that, again, this is a process. We're not going to immediately be able to secede day one from the whole banking system. It's going to take time to pay enough premium, to build enough cash value, to totally opt out of the whole system. And so this idea that I've got to go suck all the equity out of the place where my family lives to go pay a higher premium right now, or that I've got to go, buy cryptocurrency. You want to buy cryptocurrency, fine. But the idea that you have to go, pay a whole bunch of premium to build cash value to go do that right away, otherwise you're not making the best of it, is missing the point. Because the opportunities will track you down.
I tell people, because it's true, or it's a good point to consider, is paying off the mortgage more powerful than having the ability to pay off the mortgage?
Oh, man.
Okay. So, and then if you're a business owner.
Maybe you should say that one more time.
All right. Which one is more powerful? Paying off the mortgage or having the ability to pay off the mortgage? Right. So the banker can do whatever they want. He who has a goal makes the rules. And if we're going to leverage up everything, right, because nothing ever goes wrong. Never a problem until there's a problem. You get all leveraged up with your $30 million in assets collateralizing a $15 or $20 million loan. What could possibly go wrong there? Right? Yeah, it's just an example. So maybe maintaining the ability to control the leverage is a better starting point than contorting policies and leveraging everything I have to collateralize a policy, to leverage that policy to the nth degree. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Right.
And I've said it before, and I get accused of it sometimes for being too conservative. Okay. Wow. Okay. So let's say we start too small. Okay. Proper foundation. There's a natural expansion. And if you're working with a practitioner with their salt, that's part of the solution, whether you actually expand or not. Okay? So if I start too small, and the idea is, you have the ability to expand, whether you do it or not, but you started too small, and a year or two later, it's obvious that you started too small. Man, expansion's not a problem.
There you go.
Man. And I didn't have to beat them up with illustrations and accusations and innuendos.
Take $50,000 or take $90,000 of your $61,000 income to go pay a premium in the first year. It's curious how in a lot of those examples that float around online, the total premium paid into the policy is like a giant percentage of income in year one. Whereas I know for both of our experience, there are many times you got to talk someone down.
Yes.
Like, it's okay it's a process. It's okay to proceed into this. There will be an expansion. There will come a time. And what really does it for me is that the idea of making the bank deposits. It's like, well, and that just sinks deeper and deeper into my mind as my understanding goes on. And there comes a time where it's like, okay, yeah, well, that is the right premium number that I need to go get now. I think it was happening with the other practitioner we were talking about at the end of the seminar, at the end of the think tank, where she's like, this is the right number.
Oh, yeah.
Look at what I just did. I did all these renovations and bought property, and it should have been a loan. I get it. Yeah. Yeah,
very humbling when someone like that says, James, will you look at my stuff and help me?
Oh, by the way, so we're this far in there, we should brag. I had 5 to 7 come up and ask why I wasn't talking. That was very nice.
A legitimate question. You'll be on the stage next year.
Yeah, well, that's fine. And then I had I need to make more videos. That's the problem. And then I lost count of the number of agents who say they watch the show, they've learned so much. I had a couple who said they're at the think tank because of the podcast. They're pursuing becoming a practitioner because of what they've learned. That was it. People who have read my writing. One guy in particular in California I'm thinking of, he had read my writing on capital and in particular on cash value and what cash value is and why the death benefit matters. Oh, I don't care about death benefit. Yeah. Okay, don't care about it. The implication of not caring about death benefit is that you don't care about cash value. Because the cash value is derived from, it's a function of the death benefit. It's a net present value of the death benefit.
You got to wrap your mind around that and understand that to be true to even care about the death benefit.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you walk it backwards. You can go ahead and repeat that again, if you don't mind.
So the cash value is a function of, it's derived from the death benefit. The cash value is the net present value of the death benefit. It's what the death benefit is worth today. And by the way, I hear this a lot too, because it's back to language, and we're talking about taking money from the cash value, and that's not what you do. You don't take money from the cash value. And sometimes we say that the collateral on a policy loan is the cash value. And I've thought that through a lot, and I don't think that's true. The collateral on the loan is the death benefit. If you don't repay the policy loan, it's the death benefit that will pay down that balance, right? The cash value tells you what the death benefit is worth today. That's why people think that, or we use the shorthand where we say cash value is the collateral. Well, the meaning behind that is that the cash value is what the death benefit is worth today. So what we're really saying is that the collateral on the loan is what the death benefit is worth today. It's all tied back to the death benefit. The reason we can take a loan, the reason we can take the loan on such phenomenal terms where we control it and there's no application, there's no repayments, and you don't have to repay it, you should, but you control it. The reason the interest is simple and only compounds annually instead of monthly, like HELOCs and like cash value lines of credit. The reason that the true volume of interest is often less than what you would think it would be if you just looked at the nominal rate. The reason all that's the case is because there's a death benefit on the policy that the company's guaranteeing. And For this particular practitioner I was talking about, he really appreciated that. It's like that. So all of that was very nice to hear. And so the practitioners who watched this, thank you. And I thanked all of you. I hope I did. I tried to, but I'll say it here too. I appreciate all the very kind words, and I'm glad it's all been helpful.
Very good. Look, I enjoy very much meeting new people and new agents, and the same. A lot of people, hey, James, I feel like I know you, watch the podcast. Thank you very much. And can I have a photo? And it's like, sure. I love taking photos, especially with the pretty girls. I'm just saying, there's one gentleman, Tom, that we've had conversations in the past. He's a practitioner. And actually, he was talking to Jules, my sister. And I'm walking by, and Jules says, hey, whoop, come here. So I'm like, hey, Tom. And Tom was telling Julie that when he first heard some comments that I made, he was pretty sure I was dead wrong. I was wrong. All right. And I'm like, oh, yeah, perfect. Educate me. I'm willing. He said, well, you talked about, getting out of debt one time on an episode. And, you made the point, or you made the statement that, the debtor that piles up all of that Uber debt didn't do that because they had an Uber amount of discipline. That's not where you start getting out of debt. And so he's like, no, I really disagree with that. And so I went and helped the lady. She was full of debt, and I helped her. And he said, I quickly learned that you were exactly right, because he gets her out of debt, right, the credit card debt or whatever, through collateralizing a policy loan. And now what do? What's typical without discipline? That goes back up. Now you have two outstanding loans. You have an outstanding loan on the policy, and then you have a big, debt on the credit cards again. So he's like, thank you, James. Yeah. You were right. And I'm like, well, thank you. I appreciate the kind words. And I'm like, well, what's the other one? And I don't even remember what the other one was, but, we discussed it on a podcast episode. And He said, I'm pretty sure you're dead wrong. I knew you were wrong. You're not right. It's just not right. And, he had an experience with that particular topic, whatever I was talking about. He's like, no, you're right on. And I'm like, thanks for the kind words. It's good to hear that the Banking with Live podcast helps people.
Yeah.
It's not like you get up early on a Saturday where you're sacrificing still family time and other things, to create, content that'll live forever. So it's good to hear that, people find value out of it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you listening. And, I get harsh sometimes on agents, but they're not the practitioner agents. They're the agents that are out there that are disparaging or bastardizing Nelson's work, promoting the idea that they're experts and gurus in the infinite banking concept. And they're just dead wrong. They're just going to delay you. Disappoint, in my opinion, will it be the end of the world? Not necessarily in every case. That just goes all over me. And then, Nelson, we've talked about it before, he used to say all the time, it's, what do you say? Deaccentuate the negative, right? Accentuate the positive and avoid Mr. In Between.
Yeah.
Right? So, but he had more grace than I did. And I'm still practicing.
Yeah. And I miss him.
All right. Well, is that it? You got quiet all of a sudden. Must be hungry?
You got me thinking about Nelson.
Yeah. Yeah, there was, it was real. Some of these speakers, getting to their, personal experiences with Nelson. It's hard to talk about Nelson sometimes.
Yeah.
You're like clicking up there and you're like, what?
Yeah. And all that whole experience, that deep personal connection, that the ongoing discovery of new understanding is all sacrificed to get a high cash value as a percentage of premium in year one.
Yeah.
And that's sad. There's a whole ride people could go on, There's a whole journey that people could go on.
I think that and maybe, we can maybe edit this out, but I think you have some really good ideas as far as logistics. Flying, the Canadians spend some 20 hours flying.
Yeah.
And from Alaska or, some of these, far out Dakota, North Dakota, South Dakota, it's a trek getting to Birmingham, Alabama. So, I've encouraged them prior to the pandemic, they should hold, and look, I'm just sharing. Hopefully it'll happen in the future that maybe there's a think tank held in the middle of the country, like Fort Worth, and then maybe one on the West Coast, one on maybe in Florida.
And it's so good that you want it to be better. Like we want to keep coming. It's not a criticism, but longer, more time between the talks. Talks are great. Don't get me wrong. Having one-on-one time or one-on-4 time with practitioners is also great. I want to mention too, Factum Financial, led by Kyle Fuller. Got to know one of his brothers, Joe. Really cool group. Yeah. Doing I'm familiar with how they do their structures, and they're doing what Nelson taught, and just hustling. And I'm kind of like impressed, like the degree of hustle and grind that they're into, and how they're expanding. That's very cool. So all of that is refreshing and encouraging, and the idea that an advisor who's not attending, who isn't coming to get that, who isn't coming to, as one practitioner put it, refill their cup each year. I just question what the quality of, and not saying that that you have to come here, or you're not going to do a job. It's like I know the essence of what people here are doing when they go back with their people, and it's like, man, if other advisors have an opportunity to be a part of that and they're not doing it, maybe that's an opportunity. Yeah. And I understand some people can't make it for all sorts of, particular reasons at a given year and time, but we have seen a degree of turnover, and some of that's okay. And, others, they've not left, they're coming back, but, had certain circumstances that prevented them from coming. And so it's good. It's good to see the returning faces. I'm glad it was held in person. And I can't wait for next year.
Yeah, me too. And mentioning there's other podcasts from these practitioners. There's other podcasts that are up and coming, and there's people talking about writing books, and I think that's good. And we need that. See, my opinion, our clients, our prospective clients, and the general public need more of the truth, right? We need more to be available. So, all right, I had fun.
Me too.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thank you for joining us on the Banking with Life podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and click on that little notification bell. Otherwise, join us on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher for weekly content.